Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our third week of our Jcps National Center for Families Literacy Town Halls. We hope that you all are doing well on this rainy day and finding fun activities to do with your children today. We are going to be discussing a very important topic that I think becomes more and more relevant as we get into each week of this coronavirus pandemic that we're facing. Today's topic is my child okay? Caring for our kids and keeping them safe online. We have a wonderful panel of JCPS staff and community experts and parent experts to share tips and information with you around a variety of topics regarding this important thing to care for our children during this stressful time. And, you know, all of us are dealing with this. This is a very strange moment in time where not only are children being faced with changes, but the parents are being faced with changes, as well as our teachers and school staff. So it's very important to have empathy and be caring to everyone around us because we're all going through this together. So at this point, I want to introduce our wonderful panel. We have Darcie Taggart, who is joining us from 7 County Services. Darcie, give us a little wave. We have Crystal Carter, who is joining us from JCPS Culture and Climate, and she is the supervisor of the Bullying and Prevention Department. Crystal, give us a little high five. We have Amy Logsdon-Risley, who is a JCPS school social worker. Amy. And we have our parent expert, Sheryl Day, who is a JCPS parent and a parent advisory council member. She's also a licensed social worker. And we have Rhonda Blandford, give a little shout out, who is also a JCPS parent and a parent advisory council member. And she is our internet expert extraordinaire and is going to share some wonderful information with us. So the process today that we're going to go through is we're going to spend about the first half an hour. All these wonderful people are going to share information. What we want you to do is to give us your comments in the comment section of the Facebook page, or if you have any questions, please post your questions there and we will be answering them real time. We want this to be a conversation with you. And if you have any ideas for topics that you want us to address in the future, please put those in the comment box as well as any ideas for how to reach out to parents. It is vitally important for parents and students to stay connected with their teachers and their school at this point in time. So please, please, please make that a priority in your family to respond to the people from your school that are trying to reach out to you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to toss it over to Darcie and she's going to kick it off.
Hi, thanks Cindy for the introductions. I was excited to be able to come and talk. One of my favorite things to talk about is mental health in kids and to talk with parents about ways that kids are expressing their emotions. I know there's a lot going on and I definitely have had a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks about sort of like, is this okay? Is this response that my child is giving typical or to be expected? And most of the time my answer is, yeah, pretty much. There's a lot of things that are going on with kids right now. But I think that kids respond differently sometimes than we know sort of how adults are responding, right? They're stressed or they're anxious, and kids are doing the same things. They're also stressed and anxious, but that may show up in different ways. It may show up in anger. It may show up in more aggressive or impulsive behavior than you were seeing before. Sometimes sadness shows up that way for kids. It can definitely show up in sort of looking like resisting the norm. So one of the things I've been hearing a lot from parents is, they loved the first couple of days of getting on with their classmates and seeing their faces and doing those things with kids. And then some days they're like, I'm not doing any of that work. I'm not doing any of those things, or I don't want to, I'm resistant to that. And resistance can definitely be one of the things we see from kids right now, especially young children. Changes in appetite, changes in sleep patterns, increase of nighttime waking or difficulties with that can definitely be something. Kids struggling with maybe doing things they previously really loved to do can be a pretty typical response to sadness and changes. And right now, with our experience with COVID-19 and kids being home, we may be seeing even more of those behaviors or things being exacerbated, kids being tired more or sleeping more than they typically would have been sleeping, having a difficult time regulating that sleep-wake pattern. Frustration that gets displaced on things that seem really silly to be frustrated about. So some of that displaced frustration is something I see from kids as well. Thinking about some of the things that I typically talk with parents about, and I feel like these things, I've seen this around, but I say it to myself too, as a parent of a Jcps high schooler, even, of saying, like, being able to have some consistency and some routines and some stuff to give kids a sense of control in what is otherwise a pretty uncontrollable time for them. I think we all feel those things as adults, but little kids can show all of those behaviors as a response of a lack of control in their environment. So giving them control in some ways that can be helpful is one of the things that we can do, increasing the number of choices that they have and helping to remember what are those choices that we have within this. There may be lots of things we don't have choice or control over, but there may be some things that we do, and how can we add that back into their day? And probably the biggest thing that I tend to say to folks is just to remember that any of those things that feel attention seeking, which as a parents at home and feeling like all of a sudden we're all sort of thrust into this new change, this new normal in our family lives, but that those behaviors that we're seeing are really the tip of the iceberg for what's going on emotionally for kids underneath the surface. And that those attention-seeking behaviors, or what we feel like is attention-seeking, are really efforts of looking for connection with adults around them. And they're looking for ways to connect and to feel safe and to say, am I safe? Is there someone still that has this under that? And so we can, as parents, we can be that for those kids. We can provide that sense of safety and help them to feel a little bit more control in a time that is scary for them. And that may make them feel sad. There's a lot of stuff from the Connect the Dots website. Connect the Dots is a state social emotional curriculum for kids that really looks at encouraging supportive environments and building positive relationships. And there's a ton of stuff on that website. It's the CCHC, KentuckyCCHC.org website. That talks about offering those senses and control and offering choices and all of those things I've just sort of mentioned that we can do to help kids during this time.
Darcie, those are some great tips because it's noticing these changes in behaviors that's going to help us to address what's going on in a more timely fashion. Mm-hmm. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out to your child's teacher if you need help mm-hmm. with locating resources, because schools are organizing themselves to be able to funnel those requests out to the right community partners. And also look in the comment section, because the link that Darcie talked about will be added into that comment section as well.
Now, I will say too, like, reach out to a mental health professional if you have questions. There are lots of places that are still open. 7 counties is one of them, but there are other places as well that are open for consultation and services and support at this time. So don't hang out in it alone. Reach out to somebody and look for those services when you can.
A great segue to our next speaker, Lauren Muir, who is a clinical counselor with her own counseling firm, Martin and Muir Counseling. Lauren?
Hello. Thank you, Cindy, for having us today. As Cindy said, I'm a co-owner of Martin and Muir Counseling, and we work in several of the JCPS schools with a lot of teenagers, young adults, and adults in the community. So kind of going off what Darcie was saying, a lot of the behaviors that you will see in your teenagers, 13 to 18 age can be very similar. Their sleep patterns may be off. You may recognize that they're sleeping more than usual or sleeping less than usual. You can also look for eating habits changing, isolating themselves. So teenagers, as we know, sometimes can be a little more moody and want to be alone. And sometimes during this, that's okay. You know, they need time to kind of be alone and process what's going on. Also looking for if they're making statements that there's lack of hope about the future, irritability, aggression, all of those, like Darcie mentioned, are definitely signs to be aware of when looking with teenagers. I think that something that's really important to recognize is that teenagers in general, they have a heightened reaction to stress. You know, they're going through a lot of developmental changes, a lot of emotional changes, even brain development. So they have big emotions, even when the world is, you know, quote unquote normal, you know. So with everything that's going on, I think it's just really important to validate their feelings, validate what they're going through, to sit down and have open conversations with your teenagers, and not just a one-time conversation, but make sure that that conversation is fluid and it's ongoing and it stays open from day to day, even from week to week. I think one thing that we can all agree on that we've heard a lot is how important structure is. And structure looks different to different families. So with some families setting, you know, that time schedule that, you know, at 8 o'clock we do this, at 9 o'clock we do this, that works. For others, my own, I have 3 JCPS kids, we work more on a flow. Like, I'm not good with exact times, but we flow, that we know what comes after breakfast, what comes after lunch, what comes after dinner. So I think looking at not, you know, what's going to make your life easier from day to day, and providing that structure so the kids know what to expect. When I was looking at some other ideas of what to do with teenagers, I thought one that was very good was that you incorporate your teenagers into day-to-day life to make them feel valued. So whether that's including them with cooking dinner, cooking breakfast, maybe even assigning certain tasks that they do with their younger siblings, so they know that they have a place in the family. I know a lot of the other experts today and parents are going to talk about social media and everything going on the internet, because our kids are having a lot of screen time. And again, I think that's an excellent opportunity to have more open conversations with your students about healthy relationships and healthy things to post on the internet. And also looking at, you know, passwords and making sure that you know passwords to your children's social media. And I know a big thing these days is I've seen a lot of high school students and middle school students, they share their password with everybody, you know, so having that conversation of why it's not a good idea, you know, to share your password to all your different social media accounts. But I think the most important thing right now is to just, as teenagers, as parents, as kids, just be really kind to yourself. Like Cindy said, we're all going through this together. So whatever positive steps you make each day to make it the best day, that's okay. You know, who you are today, what you did today, that was enough, because it's just a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Lauren. We're very fortunate to have so many wonderful resources in our community with 7 counties and private counseling opportunities. So we really appreciate you all spending time with us this afternoon. And please feel free to jump back into the conversation if someone else says something that resonates with you. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Amy Logsdon-Risley, who is our JCPS social worker.
Hi, I am with the Culture and Climate Department with the Pupil personnel. And so I'm a district school social worker. So something I'm going to talk about, I know that a lot of things that we are seeing right now is one of the best ways to cope is to stay connected. For mental health wise, that's important, because if we're spending a lot of time on social media or the internet or games, or the kids are doing the games, they're not getting that quality time. We have to make sure that content matters. So something that I really have resonated with is the saying that all content is not equal. We have school content, which is a positive, it's going to enrich them. We have face-to-face interaction, even though it's through a screen, it's still in-person interactions. But the games and things like that, it's okay to do, but there really should be limits. So about a couple of years ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics set up a standard of how much screen time there should be per age group. And so the recommendation was from 2 to 5 years old, it was less than an hour. And they definitely recommend that a parent be involved in that with the content to make sure it's appropriate and participate in that. And then the 6 years old and older, that is more for 2 hours a day and under. Now, during this time, I know some parents are going to say that's way too much, and some are going to be like, wow, that's not, my kids are doing way more than 2 hours. We just have to really think about right now, because it isn't as structured, what kind of content are they taking in? In relation to mental health, and I know some of the other experts are going to talk more about bullying and online, and I'm going to talk about the correlation with mental health. Too much screen time can actually be correlated in the research to sleeping disorders. And sleeping disorders are also correlated strongly to mental health. So when we have too much screen time, not enough sleep, then we're going to have trouble, the kids are going to have trouble regulating their emotions and controlling their emotions, in addition to being able to think really clearly. So one of the indicators of, is my kid doing too much screen time? Are they doing it at night? Are they getting enough sleep is a big question that I would have. The standard for the sleep recommendations with American Academy of Pediatrics is 3 to 5 years old. Is from 10 to 13 hours a night. 6 to 12 years old is 9 to 12 hours a night. And then 13 to 18 would be about 8 to 10 hours a night. So if your child is spending so much time on their screen that they're not getting that quality sleep, you know that they need to back off. And so one thing you can do is definitely, I know several before me have mentioned routines, which is good, or even the flow, like Lauren said, of just knowing what comes next, is to really set aside some time for screen time. And one thing we do in our home is they have to turn in the phones and devices well, before it was 8 o'clock on the school nights, now it's 9, and I know we're still doing school, but our schedule's a little bit later than getting up at 8, or we start usually about 10 o'clock. So when they turn them in, they're able to have their brain shut down, which kids need, anywhere from the young ones, of course, but especially for the older ones. There's a lot of complex emotions that they're going through. And so if they have too much of the intake of the social media or even the news that they're constantly seeing, it can really affect and impact their mental health. One thing I want to make sure I plug in here is that we have lots of community resources. As Darcie said, 7 counties is open. I know Laura Muir, your practice is open. There's lots of places. They're still operating. They may look a little different, but we have a community resource guide for parents, and it has everything from food help to rent to shelter to domestic violence services to mental health services. So if you have any questions, this is almost I know this time is difficult, but it almost provides some opportunities for people that maybe are a little bit intimidated to access those resources. You do it by phone and through the internet service. So it's an easier way to get engaged. And I know even piggybacking on that, for schools, kids that are usually kind of anxious with schools, this is a great time to plug in, because we know that kids that are more involved in school, of course it looks different right now, but this can carry throughout the summer and back into school. But the kids that are involved in school have a greater likelihood of graduating and going on to be a success. So right now we have some different opportunities, whether it's talking to an educator, or a teacher's aide, or a teacher, or attendance clerk at the schools, to make sure that the kid feels some kind of ownership along with the parent. Can really help when we get back into school for their anxiety not to be so low. They'll be looking forward to seeing those people rather than wondering who they're going to meet there. So really, I know this is a difficult time, but there's so many opportunities to really get plugged in, to be able to stay connected just in a healthy way. And so I know some of the other experts are going to talk more about the bullying and how to keep yourself safe socially. But just remember, the other pieces are also to keep a routine. That's the biggest thing, and we keep saying that. But also your food intake of what you're giving your child. Try to stay away from the sugar in the process as much as you can, especially at nighttime, so they can sleep and kind of shut down. And then, of course, that physical activity. We are built to move. Even if we don't feel it as adults sometimes, our kids need to move. So creating some kind of physical activity. It can be just to be a dance party in the kitchen. It doesn't have to be anything huge. You can make it fun. But make sure that you're doing that. And then the other piece I wanted to just mention is make sure you're limiting your intake on the news yourself in addition to your kids. Sometimes our little ones get information, or even ones that maybe struggle intellectually, get too much information that causes a lot of stress. So make sure that you're asking your kids, how do you feel? Keep talking to them about it and just let them talk it out to get that out. It is so, so important. So I'm going to pass it off now and get more into bullying and screen time.
Thank you so much, Amy. You shared so many wonderful things that are applicable to the adults as well. I'm thinking about limiting watching the news and making sure that we get enough sleep as adults too. So thank you so much for all those wonderful tips. And Crystal, I'm going to turn it over to you to continue the conversation as the supervisor for JCPS Bullying and Prevention Department.
All right, thank you. Like she said, I'm Crystal Carter, supervisor of JCPS's Bullying Prevention Department. I work under Dr. Katie DeFerrari under Culture and Climate. And so I wanted to make sure that a lot of people don't even know that we have a bullying prevention department within JCPS. Though we are small, we are mighty. It's myself. I have 2 resource teachers and a clerk. And so it's 4 of us total, but we service all JCPS, elementary, middle, and high school. And so families know that we do exist. We are out there. We are here to help. I wanted to make sure that families were made aware of the services that we provide. We do come out to conference with students to question, to find out about situations with bullying. If they feel like that something may be going on and they just want to, share, or administrator may call us out, a counselor may call us out in order to speak with students about situations that are going on, whether they know about it or not. Sometimes we get some background knowledge from people that are there. Sometimes we don't. We kind of host our own investigation, but we come out, we do classroom observations where we can sit and watch students. A lot of times they don't know we're coming for them, but we come to watch to see what's going on, to see that interaction between teacher and student. Sometimes some things may go on there. Power struggles, we come out to watch between student and student. Sometimes things are going on during transition periods at lunch or in the hallway, the gym, things like that. So we come out to look at that. We also have our tip line, which I'll give you information about later on. We monitor that. We make sure that all the things that are coming into the hotline for compliance that have to do with bullying go directly out to the appropriate assistant superintendent for JCPS for that school, whether they're zone 1, 2, or 3 for elementary, or whether they're middle school or high school office. And we get that information directly out to them so that that information can go to the schools, because sometimes administrators don't know that things are going on as well. And so we have to make sure that we get the information out so they can start to investigate, look into things immediately so that we can get the people that need help, the help that they need. I wanted to really talk to the families about teaching their students, teaching their kids how to advocate for themselves. I know a lot of times in this day, we get a lot of snitching, snitches get stitches, and kids kind of think like that. And one thing that myself and my crew are doing, we're trying to teach kids a different way of thinking. It's not about snitching, it's about self-advocacy, because a lot of times if you don't speak up for yourself, no one else will. So many things are going on that are not reported. 1 in 9 students will not report what's going on. And so we have to kind of change the mindset and allow the students to know it's okay to speak up for yourself. It's okay to tell that this is happening to you, or that someone's made you feel uncomfortable, or someone's disrespected you in a way, whether it's physical, verbal, the social, emotional, or relational bullying that takes place, or if it's cyber and those things that take place on electronic devices. But we really need, as parents, to open those conversations and those dialogues with our students about letting them know it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to say something and speak up for yourself. And also, the generation of students we have, they are very much I use the word desensitized to some things, because the screen time and the things that are available to them now that we didn't have growing up, they're able to see their full websites just on fights. You know, you could go on to a YouTube page that shows nothing but fighting, nothing but back and forth. There are TV shows that show people catfishing one another, how to do this. And you can go to YouTube and find anything, how to, you know, do anything. And so it's really important, because it's at their fingertips. As parents, as guardians, we have to make sure that we're having these conversations. Don't assume that your student doesn't know anything. Oh, she doesn't get into that, or she's innocent, she's not doing anything in her room. He or she just may be. And so we have to open up. We have to speak about those things. As parents, as guardians, we have to educate ourselves. Just because they're not doing it now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And we have to educate ourselves as to what's going on, to be able to look for certain things. Making sure that your children know about privacy, you know, when they are on certain things. Are they the appropriate age for these websites? Angel's going to be sharing in the links some of the professional developments that we've done before with my department, but it gives you some age appropriate things, letting you know, your child needs to be 13 before they can log into this, or 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. A lot of parents don't know. I'm elementary based. I was at McFerrin Elementary for 10 plus years. And a lot of parents don't know, you know, they get the child the phone. They don't really pay attention to what the child is doing. And, oh, I didn't know they had to be 13 to do this, you know, and kids are getting in trouble. They're being suspended for different things, depending on what's going on with bullying situations, for things that weren't even age appropriate, or they legally shouldn't have been doing in the first place, as far as getting on certain apps. And so parents, we have to educate ourselves with that. Making sure that you let your students know they shouldn't share their personal information. I know Lauren touched on that earlier, sharing passwords. I know we're friends and we have besties and stuff like that, but certain things they should not have. And certain things, as far as apps, we shouldn't be on. So I wanted to highlight a few, and these are, again, in the link of the presentation that I've done before. Some good places to go for information, families, will be stopbullying.gov. Another place is pacer.org. We get a lot of good information from these two places. And another place, and we have an NTI site I'm going to tell you about, is National Online Safety. You can go there. They have tutorials, they have lessons, they have guides that you can go on as a parent or as an educator and get into that information. They can teach you and show you different things. And so those are three great resources as far as places to go to look for things. And I also wanted to share some information about apps that are very high as far as places that cyberbullying can take place, a lot of. And that one, and this is one of the main ones that kids are on, but Instagram and TikTok are very high right now with, because it's videos and pictures and stuff back and forth. Kids can do a lot of mean and degrading things. And so watching out, monitoring your students' apps when they do use those things. And I wanted to tell you about a few things with that. Keepers is an app that you could get on your phone, and you can go to, and this is on the link as well, keeperschildsafety.net. That is an app that you can get on your child's phone. It will monitor and send you an alert if your child has any kind of I would say obscene or anything that was kind of questionable as far as bullying or anything that has sexual content in it. It will send a kind of a screenshot per se of what was seen on your child's phone. It will not, because of privacy reasons, it won't show you the names of the two people that are kind of talking back and forth in text, but it will kind of give you a little highlight of that inappropriate thing that was coming across the screen. So that's Keepers. Also, there's Social Shield, and that's at guardchild.com. This is $10 a month, but it does have a lot of qualities to it. I know we pay for different apps and extra things on our cable all the time, and so this will be a great thing to spend $10 on a month in order to protect your child's well-being in the long run. And then there's also, this is through Google, Family Link. And that's families.google.com. And that's one of the Google things that is within the, we're doing a lot of Google things with JCPS. And that's something that you could look into, families. And so all these things are on the link that Angel will put in within a PD. So you could watch through that, or you could go through yourself and just fast forward until you get to that slide that you see. I also wanted to share just a few more, a few more, because there's so much going on out there, you guys. There's a thing called Chat Roulette. It's an app. And just like Russian roulette, You click it and, different people are on there. You don't know who you're going to be videoing with. You don't know whose webcam you're going to turn into. And so that's not safe at all. So watch out for things like that. There's one called Sarah Ah. That's SARAH. Sarah Ah, and that's an app, and students can go in there and it allows them to have anonymous messaging, so they can be saying anything back and forth to one another, and it's anonymous, and so feelings can be hurt. A lot of times when we're behind the cloak of the computer, we get really bold, we get really strong, and we say things and we do things we wouldn't normally do face to face. Again, we become desensitized to a lot of things with social media. And so one more, Ask FM. I just wanted to put that out there. You can ask anybody anonymous questions. And so kids have questions about a lot of things because we may not talk to them and have open conversations, parents, but if you don't answer the question, your kid can ask somebody else and get misinformation. And so it's really important that we open up the lines of communication to share with our kids and talk to our kids about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what's going on with them on the inside, what's going on with them. So, I'm sorry, but it's so much to share. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had that information. And again, it's on the link to the professional development that I shared last week on the virtual NTI page.
Oh, wow. Don't apologize at all, Crystal. That was all amazing information. And I know Rhonda's just chomping at the bit to chime in and add even more resources and information for you from the work that she's done and from a parent's point of view. But this is so important. Number one, make sure you're spending so much time talking face-to-face with your children about this and their feelings and anything else that's going on. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sheryl, who is one of our parent experts, and she's going to talk to you from her perspective as a parent and her experiences. Sheryl.
Hello, everyone. Hello, JCPS family and staff. Thank you all for joining me or joining us and having me. I want to talk about, I just got like 5 good quarantine habits. I kind of borrowed them from some folks, so they're not originally mine, but these things are available to everyone that is Googling. First, I want to say, parents, families, we are together in this. If you haven't already, like this page. We have a lot of conversations about checking in as families. But the first thing is something that, I found myself struggling with prior to this is making your bed. Making your bed, we talked a lot about routines and things that we can do, but making your bed is something so easy that you can do, and it does so much for your mental health, and it's setting that initial routine. And then second is eat something. Sometimes we're moving and grooving, and fortunately we are in the home. So making sure, I believe Crystal's talked about and Darcie about what we're putting in our bodies. So let's just make sure that, we have oranges and fresh fruit that our kids can just grab on the go. If they want to, go ride a bike, or you guys are going on your afternoon walk or morning walk, make sure you eat something, even if it's just a banana. And also planning an activity. Maybe you plan family game night, and that kind of sets the scene where no one's on guard, and maybe you can have those uncomfortable conversations about mental health and about how the kids are feeling, even about how you are feeling. Maybe sharing that vulnerable moment with your kids so they can say, oh, mom or dad, they're human, they're having the same kind of feelings that I'm having. Having those uncomfortable conversations to allow them to kind of open up. We also talked about exercising. Exercising was on mine too. So again, maybe a morning walk and an afternoon walk. I know that it's raining and things like this, but there are a lot of groups, and I know the YMCA is streaming fitness dance groups and things like that you can just kind of tune in and everybody get around the screen and have fun with it. You may miss a step, you may step on your child's foot, but just have fun with it, and that's a great way to engage. And then lastly, drink and eat. So drinking water is like tremendous. We talked a lot about limiting our sugars and processed foods because do affect our brain. So we want to make sure that we're being mindful of the things that we eat and drink so that we can have those uncomfortable conversations. Because if we're not okay, you know, I heard weeks prior that we cannot, you know, fill an empty cup. So we have to put good things in us so that we can share them with our babies, because they need us to be strong and we need them to be strong too. So so be well, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Sheryl. It is very, very important to open ourselves up to our children and make them feel like they're not alone in their feelings. So that and those nutritional tips are very, very important. And Rhonda, now off to you, our other parent expert, who is going to share with us some more about what she's doing with internet safety.
Well, Crystal mentioned a lot of the things like Ask FM, which is one of the highest rated for child suicide. A link to that website specifically. It's so dangerous because they play a game on there that's kind of like truth or dare. And if you don't answer the question, you don't move up in the game, and they feel obligated to do it and they can send pictures of themselves on there too. And sometimes those pictures that are requested are not appropriate. And then they have regrets. And that's when those things, they spiral down mental health wise and feel really bad about themselves, and they regret what they did, but it's already done. And then that picture is sold and resent and different things like that. The thing that got me into this was not just because I work in social media, but a girl that went to school with my daughter who was in middle school had a video of her shared online. And by the end of the day, in 24 hours, everyone in that school and 3 grade levels had seen it. Those kids didn't realize that they had committed a felony by sharing that video, because it was a very inappropriate, very private video that she took of herself that she was sharing with another student, that she thought she was sharing on a private page on Instagram. And you can share those things on Instagram. It's not against the rules. So they don't know that, oops, I accidentally put that public, and now millions of people in the whole wide world are seeing that, and everybody in my school. And I can do a screen recording and send it to anybody I want to, and I can post it on YouTube, and I can sell it to a porn site who does kiddie porn. They don't know. They don't know that their kids, their parents don't know that they have spam accounts, or what a spam account is. They think it's spam in their email box. They don't know that it's an actual account that they don't know about, the one that they're trolling their friends on or insulting to the little girl who's getting ready to commit suicide on, to the point to where her emotional well-being is just gone. And nobody knows, because that little girl is that 1 in 9 that someone earlier had mentioned. I think it was Crystal, that she can't tell anybody. She doesn't know how. She never had that communication building or education to be able to stick up for herself, because it's snitches get stitches. And it's the same way online. They will block you, they will troll you, and they will insult you into oblivion online. And adults face it as well. So after what happened to this little girl, I worked with several of the other middle schools who were doing the one-to-one with the Verizon program, and I helped design programs for not the kids. I left that to the schools. I wanted to design a program for parent digital citizenship, so that parents can start that conversation at home. And then the school does the other half, because they're in school, they're already educating those kids. They have the tools and the resources that they can do it in school. It's not being consistent yet, but as I'm hearing, that's being worked on. It's a world where we have to educate parents who don't know yet. And it's okay not to know. It's not okay to continue not to know after you know it's out there, though. So that's what I work on, is making sure that mom, dad, guardian, grandma, grandpa, they know, and they have the ability to use free resources and tools that I come across to download and to keep, and it's all free. And I do a lot with Google, because I'm the Google grant winner for the area. I did the Be Internet Awesome grant with Google, and we won for the 15th district. We were going to have several events through the libraries, and then COVID-19 hit. So we didn't get to do that. But I still have all those resources, and those are the resources that I am having Angel share in with links. And real quick, I'm going to share my screen just real quick and show you just some of the stuff that we can share out that is free. Like this little game, it's on Be Internet Awesome, and it's beinternetawesome.withgoogle.com. Interland is a game, it's mostly for like elementary, middle school age kids. And you go in here and you have these little characters that look like this little robot here, and they're really cool. And the robots go through different games that teach them how to be kind. They teach them how to be safe. They teach them about those passwords and how to create them and keep them safe, and how to make sure that hackers don't get them, because there's a little hacker bot in there that chases them around while they're trying to collect their emails. It's just different little fun things like that. And then there's more information about well-being and family guides. It's all on the one site. And I'm just scrolling through here just to show you the different things. We even have slides for teachers. There's resources for families and teachers both on here. So you're not just stuck with, oh, well, you know, there's a whole bunch of reading and it's just up to me as the parent. Here's the family link that I believe Crystal was mentioning earlier. It's available on Android and iOS. You download an app to your phone, and then you can track everything on your kid's phone. You can track how long they were playing Roblox, and you can also shut it off. You can set limits to where when they get up to so much time on Roblox, even though they're still loading and collecting their diamonds, and they have this new leak that just came out from New Fizzy, and they're wanting to play with Megan Plays and Honey, there's still a time limit, and it shuts off, and it makes you less of the bad guy because you've set the limit. They're going to be mad at you, but then they get used to it. Both of my kids, they hate the family link, but that means I'm doing it right. If they hate it, that's a good thing. And then there's the COVID-19 things and different trainings and stuff like that. A lot of parents were feeling anxious because when NTI came out, they didn't know what Google Classroom was. They knew their kids might have used them at school, but they didn't know what it was. So these different trainings they go through, and they make it simple because it's the first day of use. So the kids can go through and use this to learn how to do it if they don't know how to do it, because not every kid is computer illiterate. They didn't have that opportunity. They were doing course or band or something else. They didn't take computer class. So different things on slides and trainings for the Google Meets and stuff like that. Everything is on this Be Internet Awesome site, and it's all by Google, and it's all free. The other options I have is the Parent Digital Citizenship, where I go in and I intensively teach you different things. But more importantly, we just started a program after COVID-19 hit that was Project Tech Drive. Project Tech Drive collects used devices and redistributes them throughout the community based on children first, then family needs for connection, and then vulnerable individuals in the city who need to connect for health assistance, different things like that. We're trying to close the tech drive to promote mental health and health well-being both. So I'm working on partnerships like with NAMI and anyone else who wants to partner with us. We have partnered with your Jcps to make sure that we get the word out more. And they have things like story time and stuff on there where somebody comes on every day and they read books. So we share all that information and all those resources, and any resources that you have, we will share on that page for families. And we have them tagged out to where if you're looking for food assistance, all you got to type in is food. If you're looking for jobs, type in that job link, and it all goes through that Facebook group, and it's so easy to find. So we're not just trying to give you tech, we're trying to teach you how to use it safely and where you can get those resources to help the most.
Wow, more resources. This is incredible. You guys have been an amazing panel today, and I'm sure everybody watching is just blown away by the amount of resources available. And I just want to give a special thanks to Sheryl and Rhonda, because they both give them themselves over and over and over again to help others in the community, to help other parents, and they do this for free. This is not their paid job. So thank you again to both of you for your dedication and commitment to helping all families in our community. We've got a few questions rolling in. Somebody's asked what kind of locks are on the Chromebooks that were passed out by the district. I don't know if anybody on the panel, Crystal, we may have known that answer.
I am not for sure, but I can definitely get with Renee Murphy, find out, and maybe send it back to you guys. That way you can share the information on your next live, or we can send a link of some sort. But definitely we can find out. You said what kind of blocks are on?
Locks, like to lock out the kids from certain things. And then there was a follow-up question about, for example, are they able to get on all these applications through the Chromebooks that were handed out by the district, or did the district block some of these things through YouTube or Instagram?
I would say because it is a JCPS computer, I know even when I'm on my own computer that's JCPS, it's certain things we can't get into, places that we can't go. So I would think some of those things have been set up before they sent them out. Some of those limits were put onto the computers, but I would definitely get with who I need to talk to and find out and let you guys know.
Yeah, and we'll continue making comments in this thread even after we finish this presentation today. So continue to monitor that. Rhonda, do you happen to know anything about the Chromebook specifically from JCPS?
And the only thing I know is that they were collected from schools, so they were already in use. These are used Chromebooks that the schools already had. So they'll have the same locks and parental controls that they had while they were in school. So they should be pretty safe, but you're still going to need to watch them because there are always ways around them. Like the first year that we had Newburgh kids on the Verizon tablets, they were able to circumvent those safety measures and go and play video games that they weren't supposed to be playing. Now they got caught, but if you're not watching them, because there are over about 35,000 that were just loaned and then several more that are out there now, and the ones that we're sending out through Project Tech Drive, they're going to need to be watched. My daughter at 8 years old, she's 14 now, she was able to circumvent and King Root, which is just an app. And she didn't have to code it at all. You download the app and the app does it for you. So it can be done, and it's very easy to do for these kids. If an 8-year-old can do it, your teenager in high school is definitely going to be able to do it.
And then I wanted to toss a question out to our mental health experts. If you want to just talk about maybe some behavioral indicators specifically to watch out for, and I don't know if you want to break it out, younger kids versus middle high school kids, that are pointing parents to say, maybe I do need to look into some professional help for my child versus just a situational behavior that is easily corrected.
Sure. And Lauren and I can jump in on top of each other. One of the things I always say is if you hear kids making statements about not being safe, and it doesn't matter to me if they're little or older, if they start making statements that they're going to hurt themselves or other people, I think that's definitely an indicator for seeking out assistance. Sometimes I think we just assume that kids are, oh, they're just playing around. And yes, we can, you know, I definitely feel some of that out with parents when they call me, but I always say it's good to reach out and ask some questions. Tantrums that last longer than 30 minutes, really last longer than 15 minutes, kids that don't seem to be able to calm down. Separation anxiety that includes, I can't let you leave my sight, like literally cannot let you do some of that, can definitely be an indicator, or really any amount of that kind of significant anxiety. When kids start to have worries or fears that seem to start to be bigger than where that is. And I would think that really kind of goes for any age group. Tearfulness that lasts an excessive amount of time and doesn't seem to be able to do that. One of the things I often say is maybe not like right is attitude. I'm sort of like, well, if I can pay attention to the compliance that I'm getting versus the attitude with which I'm getting the compliance, maybe that's maybe not as big of a, you know, lots of kids have attitudes. My kid has an attitude. But I think that anytime it starts to get, you know, lack of interest in doing things that maybe they previously wanted to do, refusal to reach out to other individuals, friends, things like that. Sleeping large amounts of time. You know, if they're stayed up till 4 in the morning and they sleep until 2 in the afternoon, okay. But if they're going to bed at midnight and they're staying asleep until 6 o'clock the next day, I mean, like if it's kind of a constant thing and they're up and they just no energy, that would definitely be an indicator too. Lauren, I'm sure you have things to add to that.
Oh, you did a great job. I completely agree with all you said. I think that the important thing is that parents are the expert on their own child. So kind of like you said, like look at the norm of how your child typically acts each day or interacts with others. And if you start to notice differences, that's always a red flag. Like if you have a child that's super active with talking on the phone to their friends every day and they're involved in cheerleading or track or whatever sports, and all of a sudden they don't want to do those things, or they don't want to talk on the phone to friends, that would be an example of seeing that maybe something is going on, you know, more. And I think to go along with what you were saying, loss of hope or kind of an I don't care attitude. I see that a lot with the older children I work with. Like they don't care. They don't care about schoolwork. They don't care how they make people feel. They don't care, you know, how they're feeling. So those are some keywords, I guess you could say.
I pay attention to the length of time, you know, like every kid has a bad day. Every individual has a bad day. If it starts to be like every single day is a bad day, then we definitely need to be paying attention to that, for sure.
Right.
I would also like to add, I mean, and this can be comparable to summertime too, because there's not a lot going on, even though they can go and do things. But our routines have changed. And so we are going to see some differences. I know one of my children is very lethargic because she's just not, we have to keep her in that routine. So going back to that, the plus and the positive of having a routine is when you have those and your kid is not going with that after you've got it in place for a while, and you can see more of their behaviors changing to know what the risks are. If we don't have routines, they're just going to do whatever boundary or push whatever boundary or not do anything if they're, you know, kind of not motivated. But also kids that are giving away their belongings or that are just like Lauren said, no hope for the future. Maybe a kid that had lots of plans of what they're going to do, and then all of a sudden they're not into those anymore. They're not counting on those. They don't have anything that they're working towards.
Right. And the additional piece too, I always say is, and parent stress, right? So it's not just kid stress, but I think being able to reach out and just have some stuff around families, like when families stress changes and, you know, and parents start to recognize I am feeling like I'm parenting differently, or I am not having that well with which that I feel like I need to parent, like that's another reason to reach out. So that's sort of across the lifespan. Like those are some kid behavior changes that I think too, but I recognize that for adults, one of the things I say to parents all the time is you know, just like the airline company would tell you, you absolutely have to put your own air mask on before you put the air mask on for your kids. There's a reason they ask you to do that, because your stress is important in being able to manage what's going on with that too. So I always say, like, reach out on behalf of your kids, but never feel like you can't reach out on behalf of yourself too, as the caregiver in that situation.
And I think Darcie, you bring up a good point, even like monitoring us as parents. One of the best things that we can do to help our children is being a good example. And that doesn't mean have it together all the time. That means showing, hey, I'm going to ask for help because I can't handle this by myself anymore. It's okay to say that, because your kid, that it's okay for them to say that as well. And it makes you more approachable. It makes them feel like you don't have to be, you know, perfect in front of you all the time, but that we don't always handle it well as parents either.
Right.
So it's definitely okay to say, look, you know, I need to take a time out, or this is what I'm going to do to feel better, because kids can see that we're upset, but they don't know what's going on in our heads. So if we talk some of that out to model that for them, you'll see they'll start to kind of mimic that and do that as well.
Absolutely.
Right. And along with that, saying, you know, that it's okay to not be okay. And you also don't have to wait until you're in crisis to get help. You know, a lot of people have therapists and mental health counselors when things are going good, you know, still just having someone to check in with and talk to and bounce ideas off of. I think a lot of times in our community that people don't realize how accessible mental health is to them.
Absolutely.
You know, and the youth service center coordinators, family resource, and the elementary school counselors, they all have lists of several providers, you know, all around the city that do all different types of therapy. So it's as simple, you know, as just picking up the phone call and letting them know they need help, and they can get you instant access. And I believe most of the providers like myself, I mean, you can get in within a couple of days. So it's okay to reach out, you know, and let someone that you need help.
We had a parent ask if there are opportunities for students to do monitored group chats about mental health topics or how they're feeling.
I have one for that. It's called NAMI Youth Advocacy Council. It's through the NAMI Louisville. I'm actually a member, so is my daughter, because it's from 14 to 24. And they're working on a 14 to 18 group support, to where it'll be led by a child who's been trained to lead the group by NAMI support. And then they will be eventually graduating that into the older young adults, but they want to do 14 to 18 right now. So NAMI Youth Advocacy Council, they have their own social media. I can get links for it and put it in the comments later after this, but that is a really good opportunity for kids. And the group meets once a month, and they plan activities to do with each other. And like before COVID-19, they wanted to go to the nursing home and meet with elderly people and do like different Scrabble games and interact and bring food to them and, you know, just make a buddy kind of thing. So they do stuff for their own mental health, and then they do public community type things to keep their feel good about myself up, which is also helped to keep them busy. And that's what they're struggling with in their group right now, is what can we do while we're in COVID-19, but they're still figuring out ways. They're setting up like a digital screen in one of the nursing homes and doing a trivia thing based on movies that were around when these elderly people in the nursing home were around. So they'll know the trivia that's being asked. So there's all kinds of fun things like that. And NAMI itself, it has these video support groups, and they also have video counseling offered. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to partner with them for the Project Tech Drive. But to lead back to what Amy was saying before about allowing yourself to say that it's okay and to step back from the previous question, because we had another question after that, you also want to lead by example online. A lot of parents aren't doing that. They're posting pictures with the ladies out, and everyone thinks that's okay because that's what mom did. And mom's posting a picture of her holding a martini. That's okay for me to do. Dad's got a picture of an AK, so that's okay for me to do. Those kinds of things. So that's really important, is to lead by example online. But when you worry about a kid online is when they sneak off with their tech. When they start isolating themselves, they start hiding their screen, they start changing those passwords, changing their IDs and their profile names and their profile pictures so much over and over and over again. It becomes like roulette, where it's always changing so that you can't find them so easy. That's when you have to start worrying, because they're talking to someone they're not supposed to talk to, and they're trying to hide that from you. That's my soapbox.
Well, wonderful suggestions, and we are closing down. Unfortunately, we have a couple more minutes left. We did have one serious concern that was raised about from Autumn, asking how can parents have an open discussion about suicide? And I hate to give this question such limited time to answer, but does anybody have a quick response to that?
That's a hard one to have a quick response to. But it's a very good question, and it's a question that a lot of parents do have. I will say it depends on the age, and Darcie and Lauren can help me out with this. But definitely with the older kids, the teenagers, you want to ask the question and not be very, don't be vague about it, because different understandings, like if you say, are you thinking about hurting yourself? That means different things to different kids. But if you say something like, are you thinking about ending your life or committing suicide, it's very direct. And I know there's a lot of fear with that because some people believe that that's introducing the idea, but you're not. There's research around this that's not introducing the idea. Because you asked that question, somebody's not going to say yes if they weren't thinking that. But that opens, even to say that word, that taboo word, helps the kid, the teenager, to feel like, okay, this is something we can talk about, because they feel so hidden with trying to hide those feelings that they're scared, and really all they want is help. So I'll let Darcie and Lauren add to that. On age groups, that's hard with the young ones.
I mean, I always say as directly as possible in the developmentally appropriate language you feel like is good for the kid at the time. Mm-hmm. But I do think that, we run the risk with young children of maybe assuming that they don't know, or they don't know what we're talking about, but little kids have big things going on inside of that. And so, I mean, and all the way up to teens and adults. And I would second what Amy said. I think we have to ask that question, and we have to get comfortable with saying it in a way that we are also comfortable using the words, because I think a lot of times it is about my own insecurity about saying, are you thinking about suicide versus, so we do say, are you going to hurt yourself? Have you ever wanted to sleep forever? We say different kinds of things that maybe are not as direct. And sometimes kids, like, whatever, mom, I'm not going to talk about that, okay, but I just want you to know that this is a dialogue we can have. And that if you ever are in that situation, or somebody that is, I want you to be able to come to talk to me. Because, my goal is for all of you to survive as long as you can. And in order to do that, we have to have open dialogues and communication.
Yeah, I think you guys both were excellent. I was just going to say what Darcie just said is even if they don't feel comfortable saying it at that time, to utilizing that time to reassure them that this is a conversation, that you can have at any time, that you're never too busy to listen. I think myself, same if we're talking about teenagers, older kids, I hear a lot, that my parents, I just want them to listen. I just want them to listen. They're too busy, and we are. I mean, I recognize that myself as parents. We go, we do, so letting them know that no matter how busy we are or may appear to be, we're never too busy to hear, what's going on in their world.
Okay, we're running a few minutes over, but I do want to give Crystal maybe one more, if you want to add anything.
No, I'm just listening in myself. I'm going on with everything that's been said. I definitely agree with those things. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you so much to each of you for joining us today, and to our panel of experts, professional and parent/professional. We are so fortunate, again, in this community to have so many resources. Again, follow the comments, because we've tried to list as many of those as possible. Continue to follow the JCPS Family Engagement Facebook page, where we will continue to share resources. And stay tuned. We'll have another town hall next Thursday at 3 o'clock, and we'll be posting the topic very soon. So thanks again, and have a hopeful day. Hope is the word of the day. We're all going to find ways to carry on and have hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.